prompt flow is going to address, and how really it helps current project or new projects which are currently using Gen AI capabilities at the moment, right? And what is really the high-level process around the prompt flow? That's what I'm going to be covering, and then covering some of the key concepts and high-level benefits and capabilities that that prompt flow offers, and then we'll jump to the demo. So I'm not going to take too much time on the slide, and then eventually we'll just jump into the demo and then dive into it. Feel free to ask any questions that you might have. Again, this is still in preview, so things may be updating on a regular basis. So if something breaks, then we will take a look into those. All right, so as you guys may have already been on Gen AI journey, and most of the people have been deploying some solutions in this space, right? Whether you are building your chatbot or Q&A kind of a scenario and stuff like that. Lots of general question that people are bringing to when you are working with Gen AI is, can you bring your own data, right? Especially the private data, which you don't want to share with or a public network, or having it probably logged somewhere, which could potentially be used by others, right? So that's a normal question and challenge that people are normally trying to bring this question up. Again, one of the key thing on Azure OpenAI platform is your data is your data, right? So I mean that data is not shared or used in any way. But again, this is a common question that normally surfaces up. And the other question, there are other challenges that people are facing is they think that OpenAI is some kind of a database of which has some data or something like that, right? So that's not really the case. It's just a model, and you just feed your information in there, and then it just looks at the next probable word or whatever that you are trying to solve. It just gives a probability and the user probability to answer those questions, right? The other challenge that that people are also facing is the prompt engineering side of it. So as you know, that prompt is significantly important when it comes to the output that any Gen AI model produces, right? So managing the prompts, managing its life cycle, defining the prompts, and all things are constantly been quite challenge for many people, especially when you are keeping track of which particular prompt has been working fine or not, do the evaluation on those prompts and comparing the results and all those kind of stuff. People have been building their own solutions to do this kind of stuff, right? So, so this is where really the prompt flow comes into the play. So I'm just going to dive with that. I already covered the performance and evaluation side of it, and then the other thing is the versioning side of it, right? So if you want to have a different sets of version, which version is giving you the better response and all those kind of stuff, and keeping track of those, and then especially when you are running into any issues and all those kind of stuff, can you reproduce that same kind of an output, right? I mean, your Gen AI is depending on the temperature and all the things, it could give you different answer. But if you try to keep the same setting, all those things normally try to give you the closer answer, right? But this kind of a reproducibility of your input and output and traceability of that and logging and tracking those and tracing that is quite challenging for many people. And then again, as I said, I've been working with lots of customers who have been building their own ways to deal with this solution, right? But again, some people are using different frameworks or different sets of tools and all those kind of stuff, libraries and all those kind of stuff, but there's no consistent way to really manage this kind of capabilities across their deliverable or across their enterprise, right? Deliverables. There are obviously the common challenge that we have been seeing, that is the safety, right, side of it, whether somebody can inject some stuff in there, or somebody may be passing a inappropriate content in a prompt, right? So how you deal with those kind of stuff. So obviously people are bringing their own libraries, and there are some kind of filtering already built in when you deal with Azure OpenAI, but many people want to have their own control put in place, logging and all that kind of stuff. So this is where AI safety comes into the play. At a very high level, this is very a quick process, and which the next slide also dives into that. I'm going to dive too much into that. I'm pretty sure you guys have been dealing with this with the Gen AI, where you are crafting your prompt and tailoring that to your needs, and then using that prompts to execute your LLM model. And then once the output is coming, then you refine content in a way which can they subsequently pass that information as a chaining into the other sets of subsequent prompts. So all this iteration, right, and refining the prompt and continue to be refining your output and feeding that into is quite challenging, right? So all these things requires a consistent way to really manage this as a pipeline approach, right? So where you may want to plug in different, I would say, component or different input that you may need to plug it in within your prompt. Is something you want to manage it from a pipeline perspective, right? So that whole management and orchestration of pipeline becomes quite challenging if you don't have a proper framework in place. So this is where again the prompt flow comes into the play and then help you in addressing some of these challenges. So quickly jump into the slide. I already briefly covered this high level flow. You can take a look at it. The documentation is already available. But again, this really goes through the prompt flow model, how you modify the prompts and all those things and do the prompt engineering. And once you are satisfied with the prompt, and then you run that through and then perform some kind of an evaluation comparison between your what prompt is generating or your Gen AI is generating versus what your actual fact is, right? Your groundedness is there, right? So you do want to compare and then see what kind of accuracy you may be getting or recall or whatever that measurement that you are doing. You are comparing those against, right? Your output, and then at the end you optimize this flow constantly. Iterative process, you continue to optimize, and then at the end you continue to be getting a feedback from end user, and then let's say if a certain percentage of a feedback from the user say, well, they are not getting the right answer, then you keep modifying your prompts, right? And like as part of your human feedback loop, right, comes into play. So again, this is an iterative process, and it doesn't stop at you just put it out there and then it just works all the time, right? I mean, new data continue to be pumped in, and then also the models are continue to be defined. New version of the models are keep coming. So this is an iterative process, right? Not only from prompt engineering perspective, but model perspective as well. New models are keep coming. New inputs are keep coming by model textual, and now we are talking about the input a model from your images and videos and all this kind of stuff. So again, models are keep evolving, and you need to continue to do this iterative like this process. So some of the key capabilities are already very high level, right? What prompt flow is. So prompt flow is really designed to streamline the whole entire development process, right? From for your Gen AI or LLM powered applications that you have. So it really helps you orchestrate and manage the whole end-to-end pipeline, and not only the management of pipeline, but at the end also you can deploy this model in a managed online endpoint perspective, and then people can call that model. So it's really full end-to-end life cycle from starting all the way to the deployment side of it. So some of the key capabilities, yeah. So you can develop your workflow. You can drag and drop or bring your own kind of a different languages or your custom code. It supports various different libraries, including LangChain or other open source libraries that you want to bring. You can bring those things, right? You can also connect to various different external sources. There are predefined sources already available, but it doesn't stop you, right, from bringing any sources or any other custom code that you may have. The other key capabilities is a way to really test and evaluate your prompts and responses, and a way to really measure them against the metrics that it produces and how it performs and all those kinds of stuff, right? So it gives you that capability there. And also the other important thing is the different prompt variants, right? So you may want to try different prompts, and this is again part of the prompt engineering, where you may have 5 or 6 different prompts, and you want to evaluate which particular prompt or refinement of the prompt is working well for your particular use case. Right? So you can compare those results across the different variants of solving the same problem, right? And at the end, you can do compare and then deploy your model as a managed endpoint. So there's a very high level capability there. Key concepts, which I'm going to showcase to you. One is the connection. So first thing is you have to set the connection in order to connect to your remote API data sources. The other one is runtime, right, where you need to this is where there's a pre-built Docker images available, so you need to associate your runtime to your compute cluster or whatever that you have already provisioned in your Azure ML. Again, one thing to mention, the prompt flow is part of the Azure ML, so all the compute instance or cluster that you are running, you can use those towards your runtime. And then at the end, the next key concept is a flow, where these are then individual kind of a nodes, you may call it, in the pipeline, or flow way which how your prompts or your input flow into another input, right? So this is where you put certain components, put it in a way, lined up in a way, parallelly or sequentially or whatever. This is where you build your flow for your pipeline. And then the tools are very specific function or unit of functions, you may call it, which you use that for your specific task, right? So any tools you can bring, or if the existing tool doesn't meet your need, you can just put that as a Python tool, and then you can write your own code, and then you can do whatever you want in there. The other key concept of variant, which I briefly covered, that the variant is a different, if you have a different prompts or same prompts or same goal you're trying to achieve, but then you want to try different variants of that, which one particular works well or not. So you can create various different variants for the same prompt that you're trying to achieve your goal. So that's a key concept here. Again, you may have already been seeing this or seen this direct pattern, right? Retrieval augmented generation pattern, where you ask a question, then you have to get some data from somewhere, and then you bring that result from your internal source or external source, and then feed that information or refine that information in some fashion before you pass that information to your language model, right? So again, it's not always very simple that you just ask any question and then and you just send it to the LLM model, right? You have to first find the information and get appropriate information. Could be from various different sources. So there is a chaining mechanism built in here, which could go through various different channels or various different flows, or different tools are being used for that purposes. And again, this could become very complex if you have a very complex problem that you are or that your data is residing in different places. So this is where really the prompt flow comes into the play to help you address this kind of an issue. So I just wanted to bring this as a reference for you guys. Customer benefit, I think I just briefly covered as part of the capability it offers and what it tries to resolve. So I'm not going to jump into too much into this one, but you will eventually have the slide. I'm going to quickly jump into the demo since we only have a very short amount of time. I should have run the computer. I think it may have already shut down. So in the meantime, let me start this compute, and I will going to just showcase the key capabilities that's been available. So as I mentioned, right, so you need a compute in order for associating your runtime to it, right? So so here is what you're going to see if you are on the preview feature. It's part of the Azure ML, and some of the key options here, I'm going to just quickly walk you through. Some of the options are here. So as I mentioned, the runtime, right? So this is something you need to have in order to run your workflow. So the runtime against the Docker container, you have to associate this, your compute, which I'm currently running. So you just go and create your runtime, associate your compute instance to it, and that's where you have your runtime there. The another thing is your connection, right? So this is where you could connect to your, you have to have the connection to your OpenAI, because it will eventually call the each flow will, or somewhere it will going to call your OpenAI to run your prompts and stuff like that, right? So this is where you create a new connection here, and there are already pre-built some connections already here. For example, Azure Content Safety for your AI safety side of it, OpenAI, or you can have your own custom where you can define kind of a key value, key pair value kind of a setup there, and you can define your custom connection there. But these are again pre-built connection here. For example, Azure OpenAI, you can just provide your information here, and then you can just build your connection, right? So that's what I did here for OpenAI and cognitive search. And then the flows. This is where you could create your new flow. So there are pre-built templates already available, so you can just use a standard flow where it's very standard flow, nothing really built in there. You can just drag and drop kind of your own components in there that you may want to call as part of the flow. The other one is the chat flow. The only difference with the chat flow is it builds on top of this standard flow, but again, it adds an additional logic or existing logic they have built in there to maintain the chat history, right? I mean, as you know, that LLM, everything you pass it in, the history plays a very important role, right? So there's some logic already built in chat flow. The other one is the evaluation flow, right? So this specific flow is used to evaluate multiple output of your flows and compare the results. So this is where you use evaluation flow. The other one is your galleries here, which are predefined sets of problems that people have been facing, and there are already predefined flow already available, right? So you can use this as a starting point. I would strongly suggest that you look at this. There is quite a bit of good list of this flow here, and most of the common problems that people are facing are normally addressed through this, right? So you use this as a starting point, and then you tweak and modify as you progress, right? So in my case, what I did is I just used one of the two examples I used, right? So one is the chat with Wikipedia, and then they bring your own Q&A, right? So let's so in order to use this one, you can create this. You can just go and select this particular one here, and then what you do is you clone this, right? And basically takes the copy of that, and then you can then start tweaking and run this flow as you go. So let's take a look at it. What really this particular flow looks like, right? So we're gonna take a look into the web classification. So this is really your prompt flow canvas, I would say, or the designer piece. This is something it's not modifiable on the right side. I mean, this is just for the visual side of it. Any modification that you need to do is through this on the left side of the panel that you see, right? So initial first thing you do is you have the input, right? So you can add additional input if you want. In this case, I have one input, which is a URL I'm passing in order to classify. So the goal for this particular web classification is you have, let's say, if you have a web page sitting somewhere and you pass a URL of that particular web page, and then it extracts the contents from that web page, and then it evaluates that content, and based on the category that you have defined, it tells you this particular web page is of this category, right? So that's really the end goal is that. So for that, you have the input, and you can add additional input if you want, right? And then what you would see there is the input would show up, and then you can pass it, right? So you can add additional input if you want. In this case, I have one input, which is the URL I'm passing. The next input of this thing is fed into your Python, right? So what you can do is you can go here, and then you can add a Python tool or code here, and then what it does is it just adds the Python code, and then basically you can call the function to it. And the way you run this Python function is it's just an executable here, but you pass input from your previous flow. So what you have it here is you have the input, which is what this particular function is taking, right? What you have defined here. And the way you take this input is from the previous step, whatever the output of that previous step you are feeding that as an input to this one, right? So as I could pass the URL, which was an input on the original input that you saw, I could add it here, right? And all of a sudden, what you're going to see here on your right side is see this Python code is connected to this one, right? So the output of this input on the right side is feeding into this Python code, right? So that's how you tie this input from one previous step to another one, and the output of this current step into another one, right? So this is how you build this pipeline. So I'm gonna get rid of this guy and delete this. So in this case, what I have it here is I'm passing this URL, and here's the output that I'm expecting is the category and evidence. Category is whatever I define there, the category of the page that I'm expecting. In this case, I'm passing the URL into this particular Python code, and then this particular code is using beautiful soup to really extract the information from that particular page, and then it just extracts the information, and then that information, extracted information, then it's going to be passed into another flow right here, right? So this is again a LLM flow, and what I'm doing here is the output of that previous text that was extracted from that page. I'm feeding that an input to the passing that to the OpenAI for summarization purposes. So here's I define my connection. So once you add this LLM connection that you already set it up, you have to choose that connection, which your particular model that you have available, deployment available, you set that one up, and then you define some basic settings that are part of the OpenAI calls, and then you provide your prompt. And then as you can see here is the input that I am feeding it in here is the input which is coming from your previous output, which is this output, right? Which is your output of this text that's generated from or extracted from that particular website. So that's what I am feeding it in here, and it calls this particular OpenAI with this input, and then it basically summarizes that output of that particular page. And then what is happening here is it then uses the summarized information before you pass that the next chain in the OpenAI. What it's doing here is you are creating a set of examples for prompt flow, right? So as you know that a few short examples there. So this is really you are formulating a few short examples, training the models, telling the model that this is how it should be. You are expecting the input and output. So you're just creating a few shorts here, and then this few shorts you are passing that to another call to the OpenAI as a chaining process, right? So what you are now doing here is you are loading these examples, which is coming as a list here, and then you are looping it through. It is using this Jinja language here, and it's just processed through that particular list of prompts, and then it produces that. And then the other input that you are passing it in here is the output of your previous summarized content that you have ran here, right? This is the one that it produces. So you are taking the summarized input as what you are want to classify that, and then you are telling it that I want to classify this based on the example I am passing you in. Here's the summarized text I'm passing you in. Give me the category. So the output is going to produce these sets of the categories is going to define, and then you use that output towards your towards your classification, and then it just produces that output for you. So if you run this whole thing, which you can just run it from the top, or you can just usually run it in this case. So you can run it from here. So it runs the whole thing, and then as you can see it here, one thing here is you can individually run it in this case, and then individually you can see the output of each of the executable flow that you have it here, right? So it ran here, and then as you can see the output, it just has produced the output here. And for each of this particular step, you could go and dive into and look into into the assessing the what is the log associated, right? So you could see the log for each of this output individually, or you could go on the top here, and then you could go the view output, and then it's going to show you the output for that particular run with the logs and everything, what it produces, the metrics that is associated with each of this run and all those things. It just produces those kind of stuff. So here's the each step here, that how long it took and stuff like that for each step, and then you can see the input and output for each of these steps. What input has been passed in, what output it produces, and you can do a traceability of that one. So again, this is a way to run this whole thing. The other thing is you can also do the bulk test, right? So you don't have to run a one single URL you may pass, right? So you can do a bulk test around various different sites, and then you can evaluate that result. I know we are running short of time, so maybe I can cover this whole evaluation piece during our next session. So I'm going to just probably stop here at the moment. I think this is probably a good stopping point. So probably the next session I can cover is the evaluation and the deployment piece, right? So I'll just open up for the question and answer. If you have any questions, definitely I can address those.
Please feel free to open your mic and ask question if you have any, or post to the chat window. I don't see any questions in the chat window.
Yeah, even I don't see any questions. So let's see.
All right, so yeah, sorry, go ahead.
An introduction to this for us who are just getting our first exposure. Thank you. It was a great presentation.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So next, I'm going to cover some of the additional features. As I said, the evaluation, which is quite very strong benefit that this offers, evaluating your various different flows and the prompts and all those kind of stuff, and then how you do the deployment, right? So it's really going to cover a little more in depth, and hopefully I can cover some additional use cases, especially from the Q&A perspective, right? How you handle the flow for the Q&A.
Yes, sure.
Yeah, stay tuned for the next sessions.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Iterative, for the session. So I think today evening or tomorrow morning. So I think we cannot find any questions right now. So let's see if we can find any questions. So feel free to reach out us and have anything during the next session that will be happening in uh, this day. Probably I think today evening we can post that video also. So um, so you can wait for this sometime. So,
Thank you very much. I'm going to stop the recording.
yeah. So thank you so much for the joining this. Yeah, thank you so much, Iterative. So probably I think so today evening we can make sure that will be happening in the part two. In the part two we can in case already said that so the Q&A and the demo and also moreover we can conduct yeah, so iterative data centers and something that will be related to ML from flow. So let's see what happened in the evening. So feel free to reach out us if any related questions. So at the end of the session, so I would like to add the India's referral as well. So thank you so much those who are joining the session today. So I would like to start the stream right now. So those who are joining the session, please feel to follow. So if you related to any queries regarding to IT or OpenAI and machine learning, so feel free to reach out. So we are ready to hit the 24/7. And one more thing is that tomorrow we can conduct. So today evening we have the second part of this Azure ML studio. And today or tomorrow, probably 7 p.m. at that time we have the Azure OpenAI studio. So all the service studios and everything I can explain about the speech, language, and custom and everything I can explain about the machine learning studio as well. So in that we can expect the more. So I can expect at least. Let's see. I can share my screen. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah. So I have. So tomorrow, so we can. Yeah, again what may. Yeah. So after the 2023, the new feature update that is also the AI studio. So that will be happening like tomorrow 7 p.m. And I would like to share this link. This link here. And you can feel free to to reach out us. So feel free to register yourself tomorrow. And so we have the 900 attendees right now. So let's see, we can expect 1,000 plus members tomorrow. So the plus registrations. And thank you, India, for joining the today's session. And so we can continue the evening, so we can execute the second part of this Azure ML. Okay, thank you so much. I can end the stream and stop the uh, recording. Okay.